You came back. We knew you would. Welcome to Fear Consortium, Season 3. What began as a whisper has grown into something we can no longer control, and neither can you. This season we go deeper than we've ever dared, past the shadows you've learned to live with, into the ones you've tried to forget. Before we descend, subscribe. Turn on every notification, because this season, missing an episode isn't just a choice. It could be a mistake. Settle in, turn down the lights, and remember, whatever follows you out of this place tonight, you invited it in. This is Fear Consortium. Season 3 has begun. November 1966. A small town in West Virginia, a river, a bridge, and something in the sky that had no business being there. You've heard the name. Maybe you'll laugh the first time you did. Mothman. It sounds like a bad comic book villain, something that belongs on a Saturday morning cartoon, not in the dark corners of American history. But there's the thing about the Mothman. People saw it. Dozens of them. Sober, ordinary people, couples, factory workers, farmers, families. People with nothing to gain and everything to lose by saying out loud what they saw standing in the dark, staring back at them with eyes like burning coal. And then the bridge fell, and 46 people never came home. So tonight, we don't laugh. Tonight we go to Point Pleasant. To understand the Mothman, you have to understand where it appeared. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, sits at the confluence of Ohio and Kanawha rivers. In 1966, it was a working-class town. Quiet, unremarkable, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names, where the same families had lived for generations, where nothing strange was supposed to happen. But Point Pleasant carried older scars beneath its quiet surface. The land itself had a history of conflict. The town sits near the site of the Battle of Point Pleasant, fought in 1774, one of the earliest battles of the American frontier, where, according to some accounts, a Shawnee chief cursed the land as he died. Whether you believe in curses or not, the ground beneath Point Pleasant had been soaked in blood long before the 20th century arrived. And then the military came. Just outside the town sat a stretch of land that locals called the TNT area. During World War II, the McClintock Wildlife Management Area had been used by the U.S. military to manufacture and store explosives. Hundreds of igloos, concrete bunkers buried in the earth, dotted the landscape, still sealed, still containing the chemical ghosts of a war long over. The ground was soaked in it. The water table beneath had been contaminated. The trees grew strange there. Animals avoided certain sections entirely. The air carried something wrong. By 1966, teenagers used it as a place to park. Couples drove out there for privacy. It was remote and isolated. It was exactly the kind of place something would choose if it didn't want to be found. Until it did. The first report came on November 12th of 1966. Not from a couple, not from a drunk, from gravediggers. 5 men were working in a cemetery near Clendenin, West Virginia, when something large rose out of the trees above them. They described it as a brown, man-shaped figure. Not a bird, not a plane. Something that moved with dark, deliberate purpose before vanishing into the canopy. They told almost no one. 3 days later, it came back, and this time, it wasn't going to be so easy to ignore. November 15th, 1966. 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mollett, were driving near the TNT area late at night when their headlights swept across something standing near an old generator building. It was tall, 6, maybe 7 feet, humanoid, but the wings enormous, gray, folded against its body like a creature that had been waiting. Those weren't human. And then it looked at them. 2 eyes, not animal eyes, not the soft reflection of a deer caught in headlights. These were red, glowing, self-luminous, as if something behind them was on. Roger floored it. The creature didn't chase them on foot. It didn't need to. It spread those wings in rows, and before the car had hit the highway, it was above them, keeping pace at over 100 miles an hour, without once appearing to flap. No effort, no struggle, just the massive silhouette above the car, those red eyes angled downward, watching. Linda Scarberry later said the thing made a sound, a mechanical screech, like a large record player at the wrong speed. Not a bird call, not anything she had a name for. She said the sound stayed in her head for days afterward, that she'd wake up at night hearing it. The couples drove straight to the Mason County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Millard Halstead took the report. He knew these people. They weren't troublemakers. They weren't looking for the attention. They were terrified. He drove out to the TNT area himself that night. He found nothing, but his radio, he later said, emitted a strange, scrambled sound the entire time he was in the area. A sound it had never made before, and never made again. The story hit the papers the next morning, and they just kept coming. Over the next 13 months, more than 100 people in the Point Pleasant area reported seeing the creature. A contractor named Newell Partridge claimed that on the same night as the Scarberry sighting, his television screen filled with static, and a strange, circular pattern appeared on the screen, and his dog ran to the darkness toward a glowing shape in the field and never came back. Partridge searched for days, no body, no trace, as if the dog had simply ceased to exist past the tree line. A woman named Marcella Bennett reported seeing it rise from beside her parked car, so close she could have touched it, before she dropped her infant daughter in shock and fled screaming. She described its wings unfoldingly slowly, not like a bird startled into flight, but like something that wanted to be seen, something that was presenting itself. She said she could feel its gaze, that it wasn't just looking at her, it was studying her. A man named Thomas Urey reported being followed by the creature while driving on Route 62. He said it circled above his car, not chasing, not attacking, just keeping pace, just watching. He arrived home shaking so badly he could barely get out of the vehicle. Mothers, veterans, church-going families, all of them said the same thing. The eyes. It was always the eyes they couldn't forget. Now, because we believe in giving you the full picture, there are rational explanations on the table. Ornithologists point to the sand hill crane, large, gray, with a wingspan that can reach nearly 7 feet. Red markings around the eyes, capable of running fast enough to startle someone at a distance. It was a migratory species, and a displaced one spotted at night, in a headlight beam, by people already on edge, could, theoretically, explain some of what was seen. Others point to the barred owl, a large bird whose eyes can appear to glow under certain light conditions, and whose screech is generally unnerving. Some researchers even suggested a large heron, disoriented by the industrial contamination in the TNT area, behaving erratically enough to terrify anyone who encountered it in the dark. There's also the possibility of mass hysteria. Once the story broke in the press, fear has a way of feeding itself. A large bird becomes a monster. A trick of shadow becomes a pair of glowing eyes. The human mind, primed for threat, will find it everywhere it looks. Psychologists have documented this phenomenon extensively. Entire communities griped by shared visions born not of the supernatural, but of shared anxiety. Point Pleasant in 1966 had anxiety to spare. The Vietnam War was consuming the country's sons. Cold War paranoia sat heavy over every small town in America. The contaminated land of the TNT area was a constant physical reminder that something was wrong beneath the surface. These are reasonable explanations, but they don't explain why the sightings stopped. They don't explain when they stopped. December 15, 1967. Rush hour, the Silver Bridge. A suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio, was crowded with evening traffic. Families heading home, people carrying groceries. Christmas was 10 days away. Ordinary lives suspended 40 feet above the Ohio River. At 5:04 p.m., an eye bar in the suspension chain failed. The bridge collapsed in seconds. 46 people died, vehicles plunged into the freezing water. The river swallowed them whole. Rescue workers pulled survivors and bodies alike from the current for hours in the December cold. It remains one of the deadliest bridge disasters in American history. The investigation later found that the eye bar had been compromised by a stress fracture, a crack in the metal that had been growing invisibly for years. The bridge had been failing slowly, in secret, while thousands of people crossed it every day without knowing. There had been no warning. Or had there? Because in the days before the collapse, multiple witnesses reported seeing the Mothman on or near the Silver Bridge itself, standing on the cables, perched on the towers, watching the traffic below with those red, unblinking eyes. And after December 15th, the Mothman sightings just stopped. Completely, immediately, as if whatever had been circling Point Pleasant for 13 months had been waiting for something, had been announcing something, and now that it had arrived, there was nothing left to say. Whether that was coincidence, tragedy, or something darker, that is a question Point Pleasant has been living with ever since. The legend found its voice in 1975 when journalist and paranormal investigator John Keel published the Mothman Prophecies. Keel was not a fringe figure. He was a serious, experienced journalist who had spent years investigating UFO phenomena around the world before turning his attention to Point Pleasant. He arrived in West Virginia skeptical. He left shaken. Keel had spent time at Point Pleasant during the sightings. He interviewed witnesses. He documented not just the creature itself, but the wider pattern of strangeness that surrounded it. UFO sightings, men in black encounters, poltergeist activity, strange phone calls with scrambled voices delivering cryptic warnings. He documented reports of people receiving phone calls from numbers that didn't exist, voices that knew details about their lives they had never shared with anyone, warnings that arrived too late, or in language too fragmented to be useful. His central thesis was unsettling, that the Mothman was not an animal, not a hoax, but an intelligence. Something that existed outside the boundaries of the natural world, that fed on human fear, and that appeared, always appeared, in the shadow of catastrophe. A harbinger, a prophet, a thing that didn't cause disasters, but knew they were coming. Keel coined the term ultra-terrestrials to describe entities like the Mothman. Beings not from outer space, but from some adjacent dimension or layer of reality, intersecting with ours at moments of great trauma. He believed these beings communicated in riddles and symbols because human language was simply too limited a tool to express what they were trying to say. Keel's book wasn't a novel, it wasn't written as fiction, it was a document, a warning of its own, and it refused to let Point Pleasant be forgotten. In 2002, Hollywood arrived. The Mothman Prophecies, directed by Mark Pellington and written by Richard Hatem, brought Keel's investigation to the big screen, though it took considerable creative license in doing so. Richard Gere plays John Klein, a Washington journalist who inexplicably finds himself drawn to Point Pleasant 2 years after a personal tragedy, with no memory of how he got there. His wife, played by Deborah Messing, had died after a car accident in which she claimed to have seen something at the wheel. Something with wings, something with red eyes. Her final days were spent filling sketchbook after sketchbook with drawings she couldn't explain and couldn't stop making. What Klein finds in Point Pleasant is a town haunted by the same entity, one that appears to locals in dreams, in phone calls, in fragmented visions, delivering prophecies it never quite explains in time to prevent anything. He encounters a local police officer named Connie Mills, played by Laura Linney, who becomes his reluctant guide through the town's unraveling, and he encounters a figure named Alexander Leake, a researcher played by Alan Bates, who has spent decades studying the phenomena, who offers perhaps the most chilling line in the entire film. We are not worthy of its attention. The film doesn't give you a monster to fight. There are no clear answers, no confrontations, no resolution in the traditional sense. What it gives you instead is dread, the slow, creeping certainty that something knows more than you do, that the world is thinner than you believed, and that whatever moves through those thin places is not interested in your comfort. Critics note that the film works because of what it withholds. The Mothman is never truly shown, its voice is distorted, its purpose is unclear. And that ambiguity, that sense of meaning just out of reach, is precisely what made the real legend so enduring. The film ends the same way the real events did. The bridge falls, and the thing with red eyes disappears. Today, Point Pleasant leans into what it became. There's a statue of the Mothman on Main Street, 12 feet of chrome and menace, staring into the middle distance with those eyes. Every September, the town hosts the Mothman Festival, drawing thousands of visitors, researchers, and true believers to the town where it all began. The Mothman Museum sits just blocks away, housing original newspaper clippings, witness testimonies, and artifacts from the 1966-67 sightings. Local guides will take you out to the TNT area after dark. Not many people will go out there to laugh when they come back. There are Mothman sandwiches and Mothman coffee cups and Mothman t-shirts. And underneath all of it, underneath the tourism and the merchandise and the good-natured strangers, there's still a town that lost 46 people in a river. There are still families who remember. There are still people who won't drive over a bridge without thinking about it. And there are still, even now, decades later, scattered reports, not just from West Virginia, but from Chicago, from overseas, a tall dark shape with burning eyes, seen before disasters, before bridges collapse, before tragedies that nobody saw coming. In 2007, witnesses near Minneapolis reported seeing a large, winged humanoid figure in the days before the I-35 West Bridge collapsed, killing 13 people. In 2011, reports of a similar creature surfaced in Japan in the immediate aftermath of the Fukushima disaster. Make of that what you will. But notice the pattern. It appears, it watches, it offers no help and causes no direct harm. And then the world breaks. Except perhaps for the thing that was already there, already watching, already waiting for the moment you realized what it meant. The origin of an urban legend is almost never a lie. It's almost always a truth that got too big for the world to hold. Something happened in Point Pleasant between November of 1966 and December of 1967. 100 people died. 100 people didn't imagine the same thing. Fear doesn't manufacture itself out of nothing. It grows from something real, something glimpsed at the edge of understanding, something that looked back. What it was? That's yours to decide. But whatever you decide tonight, consider how you'll feel when you're driving home in the dark over a bridge and you look up. And so it ends for now. You've survived another descent into the dark, but survival, as you've learned, comes with a cost. The things you heard tonight don't stay here. They travel with you through the hallways, into the quiet rooms, behind the eyes that close but never quite rest. This is what season 3 does. It doesn't just scare you. It stays. If you felt it, subscribe. Share it with someone brave enough to listen. Leave a review. Leave a comment. Because your words carry this darkness further than you know. And turn on the notifications. Because the next episode is already waiting. Already breathing. We'll be here when you return. We're always here. This has been Fear Consortium, Season 3. Where the fear doesn't fade. It evolves. Sleep well. We'll be watching.